Hi, before we get to this episode, I just wanted to do a very quick big thank you and a shout out to some of our newest members at the Cinemile High Club over at patreon.com/the Cinemile. So big thank you from me and Cathy to Daniel Robinson, Gary Martin, Kyle De Bruyne, sorry Kyle, I'm butchering that probably, Kate Perrone, probably butchering that as well, sorry Kate, Laura Breen, that's an easy one, hello Laura, Billy, hello Billy, and Lucy Creedon, hi Lucy, and many, many more. We'll shout you out at later episodes. We're overwhelmed by everyone's generosity. If you want to join these lovely people to donate $2 or $3 a month to our Patreon, you get access to retro movie reviews that you get to choose and vote on, and TV episode reviews on what we've been watching and shows we like and don't like. And we just today published a whole 40-minute chat on Love is Blind, the Netflix show that everyone seems to be talking about. So anyway, patreon.com/the Cinemile. On with the episode. Hi, it's Dave here, and this is my wife, Cathy.
Hello.
And this is the Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies, and we're back from paternity leave officially. We are kidless. We are without kids tonight. Granny Linda is minding them.
And it's we're just saying we sometimes regret the premise of our podcast because it's freezing cold and lashing rain.
Yes, it's
so
very
we're currently
cold.
Slightly undercover outside the cinema, debating how we'll record on the walk home. We'll see. But we're going to see a movie now. You may not know this, but here at the cinema we've got our fingers on the pulse of new cinema releases.
We also like to champion small independent films. So this is a South Korean movie, I believe. Not really on people's radars.
No.
How long we can keep this bad joke going?
Basically, right, it came out months ago. We missed it because of having children. And now we are going to see the movie that won Best Picture at this year's Oscars, Parasite.
Yes.
So yeah, fingers on the pulse.
And
you heard it here first.
Do you know what? It was funny because when it happened, that they announced that. Well, I didn't watch the Oscars or care about them, but it made history because it was the first foreign language film or non-English language film to win Best Picture at the Oscars. And then when that happened, I was like, that's not right in my head, because I was like, Shape of Water won like 2 years ago, and that was in Spanish. And then I remembered
because we saw it in Spain.
I saw that in Spanish with no subtitles on this podcast and had no idea what was happening. So I think in my mind now that film will always be Spanish.
It was La Forma del Agua,
line.
remember?
La
That's
Forma
what it
del
was
Agua.
called. Anyway, so Parasite, I don't know how I managed to do this, but I've neither seen nor trailer, nor I don't know anything except that it's about the rich and poor divide in South Korea.
Yeah, that's all I know as well.
Brilliant.
I've been quite excited for this because it was getting a loads of hype last year. It came out in November in the States.
Yeah, because lots of people last year in the States had it as their number one movie of the year, kind of an end of year movie review. But
Yes.
obviously we hadn't even seen it.
So to all our American listeners, don't worry. We're finally watching this movie that you saw
it's only
6 months
March.
ago.
But anyway, we better go because it's absolutely Baltically cold.
Yeah, all right. See you on the other side of whatever Parasite is about.
Now I'm slightly worried because expectations.
That's what I was just about to say.
Through the roof on this movie.
I'm just remembering the Shape of Water thing where you basically trashed it because you said, "Oh, I can't believe that got Best Picture." It's like, can we just clear all of that baggage, park all the awards nonsense? Let's just look at a movie that some guy made.
We need to watch it as if it's last November and we're watching it before it was cool.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Instead of months after something's cool.
Literally, no one's going to download this episode.
It's almost like we've just discovered Coldplay. Oh God, it's this new band.
Right,
Have you heard them?
Bye.
Bye.
부자인데 착하다니까. 진짜 니가 착한 거지. I'm deadly serious.
근데 지금 진짜로 이상한 게 뭔 것 같아.
Hi, we're back. Okay, confession time. We haven't just come out of the movie as would normally happen. It's actually the next day because when the movie ended,
it was very late.
It was very wet, and we were exhausted.
I just couldn't bear to walk home in the rain, and it's my first time leaving our new baby. And I just thought, no, I want to go home to him. We'll do it tomorrow. And now it's sunny and gorgeous. So
yes, so
I'm glad we waited.
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is not usually the premise. Normally we're straight out of the cinema and you get our instant reactions.
Because we have a rule where we're not allowed to talk about the movie until we record the podcast. We haven't spoken about it.
I found this intensely frustrating because we haven't seen anyone else. So I haven't been able to talk about this movie with anyone else.
Other than telling my mom, you should go see it.
Our Uber trip home was just excruciating because I just wanted to talk about so many things with you. And also what happened is, because we've got a 5-week-old, we were up several times throughout the night. So at 4:30 in the morning, got up, changed the nappy, back in bed, and I was lying staring up at the ceiling for half an hour thinking about this movie and all the things I want to say.
Oh, well, good. You're more prepared than me, because I wasn't thinking about the movie afterwards. But I absolutely loved the movie. Yeah. I think you did as well.
It's amazing. Yeah,
and so often when my hopes are high, they're so dashed, and this actually exceeded my hopes. It was like, I felt like it was a really wonderful cinema experience, because first of all, I had no idea where the movie was going at any point, which is like, it's just bonkers. You've no idea what's going to happen.
And actually, I think that was an ideal way to... I love going into movies and not knowing what it's even about, and I would recommend that to anybody listening who hasn't seen it yet.
In particular with this, it matters because you can't guess it. Like lots of movies, even if you've not seen a trailer, you know exactly where they're going.
Yeah.
But this one,
so
no.
It was just a constant surprise as the plot sort of escalates, and it does escalate.
It felt like... God, I've completely blanked on the director-writer's name, but
Bong Joon-ho?
He wrote the story and he co-wrote the script, and I'm like, how do you write this story? Like, are you just sitting at home having these mad ideas?
Well, it feels like
a bit of a heist movie mixed with like a satire, mixed with something quite wholesome, and then also something quite unique and dark, and I can't describe it because I really don't want to give away any plot points, but kind of one of the interesting things I found in this movie is it's very rare to watch a film that like has no kind of goody baddie. Like, this is a movie where you're kind of rooting for every character, and every character has flaws, but every character also has something you like, and I really enjoy that actually, from a character perspective. And then I just loved how the movie looked.
I would say the bad guy is capitalism.
Yeah, probably. It's not a person. It was so cool, and there was so much going on visually. He's such a stylish director that I want to go back and watch it again, less caught up in the plot and more paying attention to how it looks, because I was so fascinated by the plot and the story and what was happening next, and on the edge of my seat. I want to go back and look at it and look at how he framed the scene.
Same. I have so much to say about the framing and the positioning of the characters, the blocking is the industry term, but where everyone is. And what that tells you about their sort of position and status. But let's talk about all of that when we get to Spoiler Street.
We don't want to spoil any. Now, I'd say if you haven't seen it in the cinema and you want to, first of all, I recommend seeing it in the cinema, but go quickly, because we were in the smallest screen. We were in the light cinema. It was in the smallest screen, and it was like nearly empty. And I'd say, because obviously it's been out for a while, so if you want to go and see it, go very quickly. A few more. It's better to see in the cinema.
I'd like to say a few more top-line thoughts about this before we get into the spoilerific details. This movie is entertaining.
It's so fun.
Which is important to say, because I think a lot of people, because it does have very weighty subject matter and themes. I think it's very much which we were aware of going in, and we mentioned it in the front. It is a sort of an exploration or a representation of the class divide that exists in capitalist society and Western society, and it's looking at that through a very satire. You said it's a satirical point of view. It's very
really pacey.
It's very funny. It's very uncomfortable. It
nips along as well, because it's over 2 hours long, and it did not feel that.
No, it's really wonderful. The characters, you will, like you said, you will be engaged with them. You'll kind of love them,
great actors,
even though they're all quite despicable in their own way.
And it's one of those things where
incredible actors throughout. It wasn't a weak link here.
And I know people will go, oh, but it's subtitled, it's South Korean, it's about wealth, but actually, that it doesn't get in the way. It's such a romp. I almost had a bit of a feeling of like sounds weird, but I had a similar feeling to when I went to see Knives Out, which I loved last year, because this movie is like just teetering on the edge of being like hilarious, like the filmmakers like just taking the piss out of the audience half the time, or there's something going on in the background. There's just this simmering humour even when you're watching very dark scenes.
That's an interesting...
And I loved all the, you know, you've got lots of people in a house together and you've got loads going on with families, and it just had Knives Out vibes for me.
That's a really interesting one, which it wouldn't spring to mind initially, but it Knives Out also had a lot to say about class divide and the influence of wealth on people. So yeah, they really are interesting counterpoints. And other things, I think, commentaries about the effect of wealth or and poverty were rampant in movies from last year. I think Joker is another example, which was trying to comment on something similar, and also contains somebody who can't stop laughing for no reason due to a medical condition that appeared in this. But let's. Why don't we move on to Spoiler Street? I don't think we need to say much more. But I cannot recommend this highly enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would watch it again. I've been thinking about it since I saw it in the middle of the night for a long time, just thinking about what it all means and trying to unpack it. And I'd
love to watch, like, this is the kind of movie, what I want to do is watch like a DVD commentary with the director.
Yes.
I want to go off, because I haven't had a chance yet, but I want to go and like read interviews with the director. I want to read interviews with the actors. I want to like deep dive into this.
I want to go into YouTube, because somebody somewhere has done a 45-minute exploration of all the sort of key visuals of this and what they mean and what they're representing. I just know it. I love YouTube for this niche nitty-gritty stuff.
It just fascinates me that this film won Best Pictures at the Oscar.
It is quite something.
It's hugely deserving. It's just so not something that I would ever expect. It's not something
they would normally do, because it's not a navel-gazing, self-indulgent reflection on the glory days of Hollywood.
And it's not in English.
I.e. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's not... yes, not in English. And it's not... a worthy story of an incredible human being who overcame adversity and is a real person in real life, with an Oscar-winning performance of an impression of them.
Yeah, because it's definitely an ensemble. Like, there's no kind of lead actor who stands out. Like, it's all about the whole lot of them.
Yeah. I never would have... If I'd seen this before the Oscars, I'd said not in a million years. I'd give it
even though it did win the Palme
1.
d'Or then, as we were told at the start, which I'd also forgotten.
Yeah.
And then very high praise for this one. So when we do our best of the year episodes, we do them every December, and when we're doing them, we ask like former guests of the show to contribute. And we had on our show last year an Oscar-winning director, Asif Kapadia, who directs predominantly, he's known for documentaries such as like Senna, Amy and Maradona, and he had been on our podcast last summer, and I had cheekily emailed him asking if he wanted to record a contribution, and he was really nice and said he didn't have time to do it, but he did say my favourite movie of the year was Parasite. Now, we didn't include that because it wasn't audio, it was an email, but I thought I'd say it here. So we've had straight from another Oscar-winning director that this was his favourite movie.
If I'd seen this last year, it would have been in my top 5.
It would have been
100%.
Yeah. And I'm now it's interesting that we've seen a movie so early in the year for our top 5, because usually you see them at the end of the year, because then it's the biggies come out. But we can blame our baby for that one. So we're
and it's going to be even more out of date when we talk about it again at the end of 2020.
But now let's go to Spoiler Street. Dave, I'm pleased to see you've made lots of notes, because I haven't.
Spoilers now for Parasite.
It's the benefit of doing it the next day. You've had time to put notes together.
Actually, before we get to spoilers, the other movie this reminded me of, I know you mentioned Knives Out, was The Lobster. Do you remember we loved that?
Love The Lobster.
Quite different kind of tonally, but the idea of taking an element of our society that we all take for granted. In the instance of The Lobster, it's relationships and society's attitudes towards monogamy and couples, and the sort of how we can build pariahs out of that. And then picking up, just taking a step back and presenting it in a different light,
in a weird, quirky way,
with black comedy. And this felt very much like it was doing the same thing, but with the class divide. And
let's get back to the movie now.
Let's talk about what this movie's trying to say. Then, what do you think the overall? I think the overall sort of idea is clear. It's, I think for me the core part of this movie was what Mr. Park, the wealthy owner of the wealthy home, says repeatedly about people not crossing the line.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what this movie's about. It's about the line.
And we're on spoiler street now, to remind.
Yeah, so spoilers now. So it's one family on one side of that line and another family on the other side. And the line is something that features on the posters. People's eyes are blacked out by a line.
Oh, I haven't seen the poster.
And if you notice in the framing of this movie, the people are separated by lines throughout in frames. So you see the stairs that they go up. There's a big pillar that often separates people.
It's literally upstairs, downstairs, like Downton Abbey.
Well, that's the other thing. You get. He uses lines to separate people, but he uses elevation. So like literally, people are either above or below. And I mean,
our family that we follow from the beginning live below.
In a sub basement.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
But there's sort of, I mean, those are the obvious examples, and then there's the other basement which we discover with people literally living out of sight. I mean, you can say it's like that's wealthy people living their lives with completely unaware that they're sharing the same space as people, underprivileged people, and that's society. That's us. We're living.
Well, the biggest example of it was when there's like this kind of the climax of the movie, and there's this huge flood. And when we were on holidays in Asia, I do remember experiencing some rain like that, and it's like quite something. But this went on for hours and hours, and it destroys people's homes, destroys the cities. And the next day, the rich mom says, "Oh, the air is so lovely and clear. We've no pollution." She's Googling. She said, "Thanks to the rain." And the guy driving her has just had his entire home destroyed. That's like quite something as a stark. And there was another bit the rich family's son is out in the back garden in the rain, and they're like, "Don't worry, the tent's waterproof because we bought it from America." So the son's tent is of better quality than the family's home.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's just like, it's mad.
There's an interesting... America is mentioned several times by the mother, the wealthy mother. She's impressed when she hears that the daughter, pretending to be the art teacher, studied in Illinois, Chicago.
But I thought she might get caught because the dad had been in New York, according to some newspaper articles.
Yeah, no. But there's a lot of deliberate allusions to the US as a point of sort of a point of quality by the rich people, which I think is no accident in that the US is sort of, for a long time, for many decades of our life, has been the sort of centre point of
capitalism.
Western capitalism.
Yeah. Well, when we were kids growing up, America was like the shiniest, coolest thing, you could see it. But I think what I want to talk about is just how fun the plot was, and really having known nothing about this, how fun the plot is that basically there's this rich family who are essentially nice. The mom's a bit clueless, but they get just completely hoodwinked by this poor family who are so clever.
It's funny watching one by one how they infiltrate the house and the setups that they have to go through. But it's what's fun about it.
So fun. That was when it felt like a heist movie.
What's fun about it is that the movie kind of hoodwinks you as well, because for the first half, you as the audience, it's very lighthearted and enjoyable, and you're kind of with the... I forget the name of the family, but you're with this poor family. They're your protagonists, and they're your heroes. And then halfway through, it takes a turn when suddenly they're in the house by themselves. So it's almost like they have attained the status of wealth now. They've
certainly crossed that line that the guy was talking about.
They've crossed the line.
Imagine because the family actually, the rich family, have hired them all right fine under kind of false pretenses. They don't know they're related and whatever, but they've been really good for them. It's clear that they pay good salaries, they look after the people who work for them, they welcome them into their home, and these people go and that's despicable. They let themselves into their home. They're reading their diaries, they're using their bathtubs, they're drinking their booze straight from the bottle. They suddenly, in that moment, I thought, oh God, these guys are despicable, because the rich people have been actually nothing but nice to them. That's what was fascinating about it.
But what's interesting is that their behaviour gets worse the closer they get to wealth.
Well, I don't know if that's the case, because we never really saw them before they got there. We had a very brief introduction to them before, so they could have always been common, or we don't know that.
But it's safe to say that their behaviour progressively gets worse because they start murdering people and locking them in basements, Cathy. It's very clear.
It was actually, to be fair though, how the murder was done was actually done in a way where you could see how it could happen. It was almost like a series of unfortunate events.
No, it's done in a way that's very deliberate, which is
they've crossed the line. They're in the position of power. When the mother comes down to the basement with the former housekeeper and discovers the husband, the secret husband in the basement, the former housekeeper keeps calling her sis, and she says, "Sis, help us out. You're just like us." And they literally are just like us. They're in the same class. They're doing the same job. And she says, "Don't call me sis. I'm calling the police."
She wasn't going to call the police though, because she had her whole family there. I think it was a bluff.
But it doesn't matter. It's not the point. The point of the movie is that she has assumed that status, whether consciously or subconsciously. She sees herself as better than that person and wants to lock her in the basement.
Yeah.
And she's protecting the home and the jobs that she has assumed. So for me, this whole movie is about the corrupting influence of wealth. And the stone is a very important. The sun keeps saying so metaphorical, like inappropriately. That's so metaphorical, man. But it is a metaphor. That stone is a metaphor. It's introduced by the college friend as it brings wealth to your family. This stone will bring wealth to your family, and they get what they want. And it's very much. This is a sort of a be careful what you wish for tale.
Well, and isn't it funny, because when we first meet the son, he seems so sweet, right? And he's with his friend, and he seems, the friend says, "I trust you to be a tutor to this girl. I don't trust any of my friends not to come on to her. I want her to be my girlfriend. Yeah. I know you'll be really respectful." The first day the son's in with doing the tutors, he's kissing her.
Yeah, because
he literally is. He's not what we expect. I don't think he was corrupted. I think he was pretending to be sweet all along.
No, I don't agree.
Because day one he couldn't have been corrupted that quickly.
But this is a black comedy. He has been corrupted. By the end, he's holding the stone, the symbol of wealth, saying, "I'm drawn to it. It's drawn to me." And he's standing, looking out at the lawn of all these people, saying, "They look so cool. Do you think I would fit in?" He's trying to push through the line and will do anything to get there, and goes down to that basement with the stone with the intention of murdering those two people.
He does.
He does.
And we don't have much time.
They will protect. They will do anything to protect. And this is what the movie's saying, that we live in a system which it creates a line that is essentially impossible to break through unless you're willing to do awful things or commit crimes. And that is what happened. The most successful people who do break through that line are often criminals who amass great wealth in the likes of drug dealers or things like that. I think that's an example of people coming from nothing and breaking through.
Also, this family though were very industrious and very clever.
Yes, but
the kids could have broken through without all this.
But it was criminal activity. They had to con their way in there to do it, because there's no way to break through that. There is no way.
But the initial con was the white lie of pretending he was in college, and that's totally forgivable.
But it escalates, and the thing is, it's about how that influence or how that desire tears people apart, so that they are the poor are fighting amongst themselves. You've got two different families fighting each other to try and get this wealth, while the wealthy people are entirely oblivious. They are living in the same space and household as the people beneath them, and literally cannot see them.
Well, they had a great conversation when the parents and the kids of the poorer family were kind of binging all their food and drink, and the mom, because the mom's quite in this film, the mom is kind of the scariest one, because she is the one who actually throws her down the stairs, and the mom's kind of made of steel. But the mom says, "Oh yeah, rich people, it's easy for them to be nice, the money has smoothed out the edges for them." But one of her chicks, somebody does challenge her though and say, "Yeah, but she's the mom of this household, the rich mom is actually nice, she's never done a single thing wrong to any of them, and just because she's rich they almost dismiss her, yeah, well, it's easy for her." And it's well, no, actually, she does treat her staff exceptionally well by all accounts.
But the movie's asking, is it easy to be nice when you have everything? Isn't it? When you have everything,
it's easier. And I think I just want to talk a little bit about there's two things I want to talk about: the flooding of their sub-basement apartment. Yeah. Visually, how incredible that looked.
Yes,
oh my God.
And when there's a lot of, we talked about elevation and the way he deliberately has people higher or lower. Another amazing example of that I loved was when they're hiding under the table and the couple are on the couch, and they're elevated. Those people are they're always they're always below them, and the house is even tiered, so it's all these different layers with basements. But the floods was interesting because there's that amazing moment where they're they're descending that whole time. Have you noticed he located the location is on a hill, so the people live at the top of a hill.
Coming down steps.
They're always coming down,
and the water's just streaming over
watching
their
this
feet.
water streaming, and it's like this descent into hell.
Yeah,
and
then
that's
they get to
their
the house,
home.
and the shot where the daughter's sitting on the toilet, and there's just sewage like spewing out of the toilet, and she's holding it in. And even from the very start, I love how it was established how low down and poor they were, because they could only access Wi-Fi by standing like on the toilet in the highest point of their house, like to just get this like little bit of Wi-Fi to do WhatsApp or whatever. So I wanted to talk about how amazing that looked, and I want to go back and look at that scene again. And it's like their whole home's being lost, and then yet they all have to just go back to work the next day. And then that leads on to the next day. What I want to talk about was the garden party, which was just such a good kind of climactic setting, because literally the mom's like, what's the word she's using? It's not casual. She's saying it's just a casual party,
informal get together, whatever
like
it was. Yeah.
And she keeps saying that, and like, oh, no one needs to bring gifts, and it's no big deal. But then we see what's actually going on is like she's literally that morning organised caterers. She's got like the whole garden done up. She's like, it's like directing kind of a wedding or something, the amount of effort she's putting into this thing. And they're all milling around, and the family have all just had that like utter devastation of the night before. And then kind of all the drama unfolds, and it gets manic like that. The husband who's lived on the ground for 4 years, that actor is insane. Like, he was terrifying.
Great.
He was so good. And all that's escalating, and I thought it was all so well done. And then did you get to a point though where when the dad,
Park?
who was the driver,
Mr. Kim,
when he killed Mr. Park?
Oh, the Mr. Kim was the fake name, wasn't it? I
don't know what his name
couldn't keep
was,
track of their
because
real
they were
names.
calling him Dad, so we
Yeah.
couldn't hear it. But I don't know if I bought that he would have stabbed your man. That was the only bit where I thought, nah.
Well,
I mean, obviously, look, it was kind of funny, and
I think they built it up enough. To be fair,
he built it up enough that it was like, I didn't say it's completely unrealistic, but I didn't quite believe it.
Well, let's list it off. You've got the starting point where he's there under the table and he's listening to how his employer views him, as in like, no, don't cross that line. But that smell crosses down. He keeps talking about the smell.
Yeah, but
then the next day,
he knew that about the employer, though, that the employer had that line thing.
But it's one thing knowing something, and it's one thing to be in the presence of somebody who is physically disgusted by you. And the same, the mother does the same thing to him in the car the next day. Also, don't forget, he has literally lost everything. He's lost his home, gone through the worst flooding, and I
know,
and has also essentially murdered somebody. He put that woman down there to die, and then has no plan around it. This is a man who is losing his grip on reality, has no plan. Literally says the only plan is no plan. He's given up. He's become nihilistic.
I felt like that was a little bit too quick. We're talking about 12 hours time since he'd heard himself be described that way under the table. Don't
forget, his daughter had just been stabbed and murdered as well.
Yeah, but
and he'd seen his son be carried away covered in blood. So I think,
but we didn't at that point though. A, the daughter wasn't dead. B, the baddie was the supposed homeless guy who had now been killed. So none of them were actually going to get in any trouble as a family. So I didn't feel like...
I think that this is... Okay.
Like I bought it 80%. I'm just saying it didn't...
Fine.
It wasn't quite tipped over the edge
enough
for me.
Well, I think this movie is a bit...
But it is a bit of a farce as well.
It's less about the believable steps of what these people do, or rather what they're representing. And the father has to do that so that he can be trapped in that basement.
That was amazing.
And that is essentially... That's an interesting thing to unpick, because... What's that? That's telling us that
because he had said to the guy, "How could you live under here?" Like, and then he was looking down on him.
He is that because it's this thing. The whole thing is a vicious cycle. There's people. There's just always people in that basement, and then as soon as it doesn't matter who you replace up above, the positions of everybody at the beginning of the movie are no different than they are at the end.
Well, they're worse at the end for the dad.
But they're worse, yeah. But all you're left with is. Which was, and I thought the very last thing was interesting, the son and the father communicating to each other, and the letter back from the son about how I'm going to go and buy that house and we're going to reunite. It's presented to us as a sort of, as if it has happened or is happening. And we see that reunion, and then we come back to the son in the basement finishing the letter, and it is just a dream.
But the son can't show his letter to the dad, though. The son's just writing it. There's no way for the dad to
that's
see
a good
the son's
point.
letter.
Well, that's even that hammers it home even more. This is literally a fantasy.
Yeah.
There is no. That's not going to happen. He's
But
not
this-
going
I
to
was
cross
like, go
that
on,
line.
infiltrate yourself into the family again. But what did annoy me about our protagonist family, the ones we were with from the beginning, what's really interesting is that the dad talked about the line and crossing the line. When it all went wrong for them was when they crossed the line and all went to sleep in the house. Up until that point, it was actually like, I was like, this is an amazing setup. You've got the artist daughter playing into her strengths of art, you've got the son doing English, you've got the mom cleaning, the dad driving. They're all really happy, and then they completely cross the line by sleeping in their home.
Yeah.
And it all goes downhill from there. And it was like, oh man,
That's
like, what
because-
were you doing?
But again, what's the movie saying? That's the movie saying that you can't escape. You can't escape your place. The system won't allow you. So if this movie is about the system and the system is the bad guy,
No, but I think
then
this movie
they
is
are
also about
punished for that.
characters, and they're being punished for which was wrong.
Yeah, but
actions.
they're characters who were trying to make a change in their lives.
Yeah, but they were trying to
and
make a change in their lives, but this was them just taking the piss. Like, come on, trashing someone's house and getting pissed, and like, that was not.
But that's the other thing the film's saying. The search and the hunt for wealth destroys you. It makes you forget about your common person and will only end up hurting you and the people you
Well,
love.
what I like about this movie is that it threw us straight into the situation, really, right? We barely knew the characters before it began. So there was a sense for me that they actually could be long-time scam artists or have always been trying to do stuff like this, because we don't know anything about them. We don't know that they were all pure of heart before this began.
Maybe.
And I liked it because you do, like, it was fun to have like ambiguous central characters that we're rooting for them, and then it's like, but why are we rooting for them? Is it just because we were presented with them first?
I prefer to believe that they're pretty straight and narrow at the beginning. I think this movie works better for me in
But
that
already
way.
the girl was an established forger, for example. You know what I mean?
I know,
Yeah.
but these are basically. This is fine. They had the tools to do this, but they weren't really doing anything. If you think,
No, that's what I find interesting. Who knows?
I like to think of that family at the beginning of this as being quite sweet and united, and we see them having dinner together, and it's, yes, their conditions are appalling, but that's not for lack of trying. This is a family who are trying their best to live in this world and are just being punished for no reason beyond this is the circumstances that they were born into and are living into.
What did you think of the ending with
But
the
they're-
boy
but they're
surviving?
happier.
I thought it was a bit silly that he survived those blows to the head.
Yeah, potentially. I mean,
The ending was all kind of the last 5 minutes, I have to say, of all the movie. And now I'm saying this as someone who absolutely loved the movie. Of all the movie, the last 5 minutes lost me a little bit between the fantasy sequence and then the son waking up from this coma and all the rest. I just felt like it kind of ruined the ending for me a little bit. What do you think?
I mean,
It was just weird. It was out of sorts with the rest of the movie.
I thought it's a little epilogue that sort of is telling us that nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Essentially. And in fact, the only thing that has changed is that life is worse for everybody, for not
Yeah.
accepting their station. So look at
Well, no, it's not because of not accepting their station. Like, they fucking broke the law. Like,
no, but that, I'm not talking about the minutiae of the movie. I'm saying, what's the movie saying? What did those people do? They tried to make a better life for themselves and move out of the circumstances they were in. An interesting counterpoint to that is the guy in the basement who says, "No, I don't want to do that. I'm happy living here. I love it."
yeah, he
Do you know what I mean?
loved it.
That's and
I
he's,
love how happy he was.
He was essentially thriving in the best way you could thrive in those situations.
When the movie
So that's
went
what the
truly bonkers was so fun when the ex-housemaid showed up and she's like, I just need to get something from the basement, and you go down and she's like got her body like parallel to the ground, like pushing this bookshelf out, and she runs in with a bottle, like a baby's bottle of
crazy.
milk to give the husband. So he's sipping a baby's bottle and then she shoves a banana down his throat, and I was like, visually, like, all this stuff going on is so funny. Like I kept laughing even in like he's got some sense of humour, the director. And I know you've seen another few movies he's made, but I never have.
I've seen
So now I want to
Snowpiercer,
go-
which is brilliant, and I've seen The Host, which I really enjoyed.
So I want to go back and
then-
watch them now because it's just like he's truly unique. Like, it's such a unique movie. I think
He
that's the biggest
plays
takeaway.
he plays with genres a lot, which is interesting as well. Yeah, I think he's a funny guy, but he's also a director with something to say, and that's what I really appreciated about this movie. It made me think about society in a way that like only The Wire and a few other things have done.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate something that can challenge you, but also exists as entertainment, which I really enjoy.
It's quite a feat. And you know what what it was making me think of then when we got home, and in the middle of the night I was reading the news because I was up with Elliot, and I was reading about like how many cases of coronavirus are in South Korea, and I thought, oh my God. So, for example, the living conditions that he's shown us of this family here, in areas like that, if you've got like a virus spreading...
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, I was thinking how much worse it would be. And I guess it was like, I don't often read about or watch anything in South Korea. I don't think I've ever seen a movie made in South Korea. So to be reading about it in the context of the virus and that as well is like very confronting. But the rich-poor divide seems like humongous in that country, though, judging from what this movie's showing us.
Well, yeah, it does seem that way, but only because because we're looking at it directly and it's being presented to us. I think it's as bad in the UK. It is. It's really bad here in the UK. But the problem is, it's nobody's looking at each other, and nothing's getting acknowledged.
You don't have like this kind of slum culture here, but you have a huge homeless problem.
There's a huge poverty problem in the UK. But look, we cannot I cannot tackle this right now in the time we have, and I have to go. So thank you everyone for listening. Please do let us know what you thought of this movie that you saw months ago.
And sorry for breaking the premise of our podcast.
Yes, we're back to normal next time. At The Cinemile on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And we are you can email us thecinemile@gmail.com.
And if you want to support the podcast, please head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, subscribe, leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. And follow us on social media, get in touch. Okay, bye.
제시카 외동딸 릴리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌